So if you can take us back to that famous moment, that moment where you had that record-breaking sniper shot, and what you really remember most vividly about that moment, whether it be technically or emotionally or the day as a whole, when you reflect back on that moment specifically, what are the reflections that come to mind?
That's a hard question, really, because at the end of the day, you know, I was doing my job and what I was trained to do. And to your listeners out there, what my job was as, I held the world record for the longest sniper kill. And that's where, I sort of based my credibility on. And then I'm a big advocate for mental health, going on from that, being discharged from the army with complex PTSD and other injuries. But to answer your question there, wow, yeah, you've got to take your mind to another place. Now, I didn't know I broke the world record. I'd never heard of Rob Furlong, the Canadian sniper. He had a Macmillan 50 cal. Mate, that can go 4Ks plus on a straight line. So that's a given. My rifle only goes 1,500 yards. So the weather was perfect, and my main objective at that point was to save 12 guys in the shit getting shot at by a PKM machine gun. And I couldn't identify that shot, where those shots were coming from straight away. And when I did PID that target, personally identify that target, I took a gamble, really. The gamble was to get their heads down, really, because looking for a sniper scope at assembly a mile and a half away, they're pretty small, and to just get their head down so my lads can get out of the shit is a no-brainer. So, but people forget, as a sniper, you only take 2 to 3 shots and then get out of dodge because you give your position away. And I was getting shot at. So there were rounds hitting the wall. There were rounds coming over my head because I'd been there from 11 o'clock till 2:30, and I was, taking out targets and stuff like that. It was a big, heavy firefight that were against the Taliban at the time. So yeah, you just take your mind to somewhere else, as in you have to blank everything out, even though you're getting shot at and you can hear rounds whizzing past your head. You have to blank everything out and just calm your heart rate down, calm everything down, because lads are relying on you, and yeah, well, it took me 9 shots to hit the wall in the morning because I was hitting a dicker. And what a dicker is a bloke on a radio orchestrating the attack. And I saw him. So it sort of set me up for the shot, really, because I took my 9 shots. So it's called bracketing. So every time I took my first shot, it fell short. So I lifted my rifle up a bit higher, higher until I hit the compound wall. And then, I carried on the firefight with what my lads were doing. And they got pinned down. So I knew my aim I did that in the morning. I knew my aim in the afternoon. So yeah, I just took a chance and I ended up hitting them. And I always called it a fluke, but people say, yeah, we've done it twice. Well, that's 2 flukes in it, so, and I fired my first shot. I missed, fired my second shot, hit him. And then the other guy stood up because it was 2 targets that I took out. He stood up, and as he stood up and turned, I fired my third shot, and it's 6-second time of flight. And as I fired my third shot, I counted to 3 seconds. I went 1, 2, 3, moved my rifle across, and I fired my fourth shot. So it ended up 2 bullets in the air at the same time. The third one missed him, and the fourth one hit him. And, and my men managed to get out, thank God, with no injuries, but a lot of damage to the vehicles. And my men managed to get out. And yeah, and it never crossed my mind at all that I broke the world record. I just done what I was meant to do at the end of the day. And that sort of set me up for the rest of the tour, really, until I got blown up.
So, at what point does someone inform you of that this is a world record, and how do they verify something like that?
So an Apache helicopter came down and he lasered it, because if you're in, we call it a TIC, troops in contact. If you're having a fight for more than a certain amount of time, they bring air on station. And the air we had was Apaches, and they took their fucking time getting there, and finally they got there, and the helicopter came down, and where there's one, there's always another. And he appeared in the distance, and I pointed. He lasered it, because you can see the bodies. He lasered it, and it was 2,475 meters away, just over a mile and a half. And I then, when my tour finished, obviously you get a medals parade afterwards. And I told this media guy, and my lads backed it up, what I'd done. So it wasn't just my account, that was for the shots. And then the media just ran with it, and it just snowballed out of fucking control, to be honest with you.
And I've heard you in the past say that, that accolade isn't something you're necessarily extremely proud of, like some people may think.
No, I wish I never done it, to be honest with you. It caused me, in a way, I suppose it's wrong for me to say I wish I never done it, because I did save some lives, and I got my men out of the shit. But if I had hindsight to look into the future and realised how much misery it'd bring onto my wife, my children, and myself, I doubt if I would have done the shot, to be honest with you. I would have probably missed and hit the compound wall, or instead of aiming at them, or something like that, or brought air onto them. But then my men would have been in a contact longer, and then who knows, they could have had wounded, could have had deaths, so I had to act on my feet at that time.
Why is it that shot specifically that you sort of have or wish never happened?
I've got regrets. I've got other shots, that I don't really want to divulge into, because it's quite upsetting for myself, really. Yeah. But snipering's a hard task. It's a hard job. And people always think that sniping, you go out and you kill people. It's not that. Your primary role as a sniper is to gather lifetime information of the battlefield, to get as much information as fucking possible, and once you got that information, and then you forward it, you bring it back, and then you go, right, go and take that target out. And that's your secondary job. Go and take the target out. I suppose at the time it didn't bug me, it's when I come home and it followed me home. That's what sort of like got to me, really, and sort of chipped away at me, and wish I never done it. Yeah, because the other shots that I've got guilt on, I suffer in silence, up here. But this one was open to the media and the world. So I'd rather suffer in silence, and then let my family suffer, my daughters suffer, and get death threats and shit like that. It's not called for.
No, and I suppose, that's not something you signed up for, right? You signed up for the job, what the job entails, you know what the job may leave you with, but you don't sign up thinking that this could become a worldwide story. That's something you can't really prepare for that, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. Obviously, I joined the army for a purpose, and I knew at some point that I would be going, I wouldn't call it war, but into a conflict, and I was prepared myself. And, I thank my mum when I was a child, really, for making me a strong person to cope with pressure. I don't know. I had a quite strict upbringing, but my mum made me in a way that it made me cope better in a war zone. I had more of a cooler head more than anything else,
And with the sniping specifically, because this is something I'd love to ask you about, is how you channel that level of nerves in a situation, like a sniper, in which every breath, every heartbeat is magnified by like 1,000, right? In your sight picture, everything, little tremor shows up. How, in a situation like that, where it is a situation of life and death, how do you manage to put those nerves to one side to stop them, impacting the job at hand? That must be an extremely hard part of the job.
Do you know what? I close my eyes and I go to a place, and a happy place, to make me relax, to make me calm. And believe it or not, I went to Egypt with my wife, and we went to Sharm el Sheikh, and I went snorkeling in the sea, and to see the coral, to see the fish, and I spent hours. And when I close my eyes and think of that, it really relaxes me, relaxes my heart, and it takes me to a good place. And when I open my eyes, I can see my crosshair fixed, on that target. But you don't shoot on full magnification anyway, because if you shoot on full magnification, your scope wobbles. So you always click it down to half magnification to make it more harder. It makes it more harder for you as a sniper, but you got better eyes on that target and you're guaranteed to get a kill.
And I think that's one side of this that everyone can appreciate, the real skill level that goes into this. But then, to take it a step further, that some people aren't aware just how long you may be in these positions, right? So I think for you, is the longest you spent in a fixed position like 10 days or something, wasn't it?
7 days it was.
7 days.
7 days. I was in a position in Afghan, a place called Panda's Ridge. So I just stayed on there and I catnapped through the day, literally having probably 10 minutes sleep. And then I'd wake up, be on the scope for about 2 hours, and then have another catnap for 10 minutes and do that. Through the day, the targets come out. Through the night, you see a lot more action through the night, but their skills and drills are on par, and when I was in Afghan, our night capability for the sniper rifle wasn't good. You only had a distance of probably 600 yards. It's called a Simrad scope, but they got other systems out there now that can go longer range. So it's mainly in the day you'll be taking targets out, and mainly at night you'll be observing more. So in the day, because you observed at night, when them targets are laid up,
And what was the hardest part of staying in that fixed position for so long? What's the most challenging part of that?
Cramp. That's what it is. Every army person knows, or veteran knows, that rations are designed for high calories, but they're also designed to constipate you as well. So it just, so you're not crapping every 10 minutes, and so that I wasn't really fussed about. I was eating, it's called hard routine. So there's no cooking at night. There's no cooking in the day to give your position away. All you're doing is putting your head down and eating a biscuit now and again, drink water out of your camel pack that's in the sun. So it's nice and warm anyway, which is good. And then all you got to worry about is pissing. But I used to piss myself. And what I used to do is dig a trench between my legs and just wee, and then the sun would bake it. So no dramas about that. And but cramp was the biggest one, because you haven't moved for such a long period of time. And it was funny, after that op, I stood up and I felt drunk because my body didn't work, or my legs didn't work properly, but soon comes back again.
Is that something like through all the training you can all the training in the world to prepare for something like that, but is that something you can't really prepare for? When you come to do something like that for the first time and you're actually in, the situation rather than a simulated version, is that very different to, what you can possibly prepare for?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, when you've had enough, you just stand up and training, and you think, "Well, I've done that,"
Mm.
But when there's actual people actually hunting you and tracking you down, I caused so much fucking drama when I was laid still for 7 days. And they were physically trying to find me and they couldn't because I was in the mountains just taking shots. And they were so pissed off that I was just stopping what they were doing, dealing with weapons, exporting drugs, opium and stuff like that. And yeah, they were actively hunting me. So, but what I used to do, I used to get a laptop and put a film on, and then I used to put it at the end of the corridor, and I used to lay there, and the corridor was a good about 20 meters, and I used to just lay there with my sniper or my scope on it and just watch the film, and then just put my crosshairs on the actors, and and then simulate taking them out, and just lay there for about 2 hours, hour and a half, stuff like that, to get your body used to being, in long periods of time.
Wow. I wonder with something like this that is so physically and mentally taxing. Did you have like a why or a deeper purpose to remind yourself of in the moments where it got really tough, where you could think back and say, okay, I know why I'm putting myself through this.
See, yeah, I could say at the time, yes. When you're laying there for 7 days, or you're out for a 9-day op and you're freezing, you're fucking hungry, you're thirsty, you're absolutely filthy, you've got a beard, and you've done your job. But looking back at it now, the way Afghan was handed over and the way the Iraq and stuff, was it worth it? No, it wasn't. And I'm very open about that. No, it wasn't. Just a waste of fucking lives, to be honest with you, how it all happened. 10 years of fighting, and it took weeks for the Taliban to flush everything out and go into Kabul. Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, at the time, yeah, it was worth it because I was doing what I enjoyed, and it was soldiering. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to soldier, and as a sniper, you get treated like an adult, and that's why I enjoyed as well, because you get responsibilities that a normal soldier wouldn't get.
Mm. So, like you said there, when you've given so much for something, and then just to watch it unfold in the way that it did, that's got to be so mentally that's got to take you to some dark places to watch something like that unfold after giving so much, and people you knew and loved also giving so much to a cause like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's just the sacrifice that people have done, as well as internal scars and external scars. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's hard.
So I wonder, and I know this is something you've spoken openly about in the past, and I appreciate it is very, very difficult to talk about. But just for our audience to really get the context here, how hard is it to navigate the sort of duality of feelings when you say you've taken out a target successfully, and maybe your team are patting you on the back, maybe you're being celebrated for a great piece of work or a fantastic shot, whilst having this realization of what the consequence of that is. That must be quite emotionally conflicting to have two very different feelings sort of combating against each other. One of people praising you and, maybe internal guilt combating that. That must be quite a struggle, right?
It is a struggle, and obviously when I did my first kill, as a sniper, I literally thought I was in drama, I was in trouble. And, the fact that I was waiting for a tap on the shoulder and that didn't come, it was just pats of congratulations. Felt quite weird, really. You've just killed someone, but if you think, it's either them or me. If I was stood up with a gun next to my side and they had a scope on me and I was threatening lives, I guaranteed they would do the fucking exactly the same to me, and the way they used to do things and torture people, to catch a sniper would be a prize asset to them, and they would publicly humiliate me. So it's either them or me. And like I said at the beginning, at the time, I felt I was doing the right thing at the right time, and to to actually experience what it's like to be a sniper. And not many people get to experience that because there's not many conflicts going on now, you know. So lads are doing sniper stuff and they're just doing training on training on training, you know, and training's the way forward, you know, but you need some serious trigger time as well to get some, is it real world experience?
So in a way, it's a case of in those moments just reminding yourself, you know, who the target was, what the consequences would have been if you weren't to carry that out successfully, rather than letting yourself be overcome with the sort of emotional reaction of zooming out and saying, okay, um, someone's lost their life here, right? So it's about reminding yourself of the context behind it.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and it's pretty hard sometimes, especially when you're in a position and you're overlooking the village and your target's there and he's kissing his wife goodbye or he's playing with his kids in the garden, you know, and you've got his you got them in your scope, you know. Like I said, like, you know, you're gathering as much information as possible. So it's higher up that will give you the green light. And they said, yeah, we've got enough intel on this guy. Yeah, take him out. He's an IED maker or he's selling opium or he's an arms dealer or something that you need to take him out. So, and that's what your job does.
Yeah, I was going to ask that actually because as you were talking there, a video sort of flashed in my memory of, I think it was an American sniper talking about this before, in that they were in a fixed position for, you know, quite a while and they were following the same person. And as you said, they saw this person throughout their day-to-day life. They saw them interact with their kids, with their family. And then by the time it come to take the shot, there's okay, it's not impossible, but it's like difficult because you haven't forged a connection with this person, but you've watched them go about their daily life. So they almost become more than just a target by the time that shot comes around. So have there ever been any moments where it's come time for you to pull that trigger and, you know, it's felt a little bit more conflicting or a little bit more difficult due to the amount of time you've been, say, tracking
Not
that person?
really. Like, I don't want to come across cold
Mm.
and, like, but at the end of the day, you've got this enough information in your head to know what bad things this guy's doing,
Yeah.
you know. And when you come back to England and you see amputees, or in America, you see horrifically burnt people, veterans and stuff like that, and how mentally scarred some people are, and the suicide and stuff like that. Probably no, really, the job's the job at the end of the day. It needs to get done.
Yeah. Wow. And if we start to move now into the sort of the mental health side of this conversation, as I touched on at the top of the show, um, can you take me back to, or can you pinpoint a certain moment where you first had the indication that you may be suffering from something, even if you didn't know what it was at the time? Was there a moment you can pinpoint where you thought, you know, something doesn't feel right here?
Yeah, Kosovo, without a doubt. Without a doubt. You know, 1999, we went over to Kosovo, and we were the liberation force going across, you know, kicking the Serbians out from Pristina, putting them back over the border. Yeah, it was hard digging up mass graves and sorting bodies out and to, like going to the morgue and sorting the morgue stuff out. And yeah, it was really hard fucking tour mentally. There wasn't much fighting, because obviously the Serbians retreated back over to Serbia and it wasn't much fighting going on. But for the emotional, physical scar, internal scars from mass graves and all that, and I know friends now that are really suffering from what they have seen, you know. But in the army, you're moving 1,000 miles an hour.
Mm.
So to stop and go, something's not right with me, by me, is the wrong thing to do at the time. You know, it wasn't seen to be a thing. It was, I fucking hate the word man up, and that's what You know, that's what the majority of us did. We just manned up and got on with it for the next tour, you know, carried on training. And what's good about the army, they don't let you ponder. So you haven't got time to sit there and think. You're constantly on the move. You're constantly doing stuff. And obviously, after Kosovo, Iraq kicked off, and then Afghan kicked off shortly after that as well. So you're constantly on the move. But I think my last tour of Afghan, when I got blown up and got shot as well, I think that was when I got redeployed 6 weeks later after that blow up. I think, yeah, I'm not fucking right here. There's something not right. But I tried to ignore it as much as I could. And people noticed it more than I did. Like my wife noticed it first, and then the army noticed it. I thought I was fucking fine, but I must have shown it more. And my mask that I wear majority of my life slipped. People saw beyond that and realised that there was something wrong with me. So,
And how did it manifest itself in daily life? What exactly were people noticing that was different?
isolation, snappy, anger, um, going too far, sort of going on exercise. And then you get other regiments or your own regiments, your other squadrons acting as enemy, and you'd think you was an Afghan, you'd think you was in Iraq, and when you caught them, you would cable tie them, you know, you would put masks on them, but it's too far, you know, because your mindset, you think you're there, and people notice that. And when I used to go into the sergeant's mess, I used to sit on my own, and I'm a bit of a loner anyway, so sniping sort of sorted me a little bit. You know, it's the right thing for me to do. It's a funny little job, really. Instead of working with people, work on my own, and I'm the only one to blame if things fuck up, you know. And yeah, and then my wife noticed it, you know, not being affectionate to her, sleeping downstairs, walking around the house, thinking people are looking through the windows, and just strange things. But in my head, I felt all right, and it was completely fucking normal to do that. But obviously not.
And just going back to something you mentioned there about how you didn't really have time to reflect on these things because it's always, you know, in the military, right? It's always on to the next thing. Do you think that not having the time to process tragic events, traumatic experiences was a good thing, or something that was detrimental to you? Do you wish you had more time to process, you know, your feelings, or was it a positive that it was right on to the next thing? Don't really have time to think about this. Is that a good or a bad thing?
Bad thing. You need time to reflect. And any aspects of life, from trauma, from road accidents, being an alcoholic, being a druggie, or whatever you've been addicted to and you've overcome it, to reflect on that is the most important thing. And I think if people had time to reflect on stuff, suicide would be down massively, you know.
And before you know, whilst you go through all this training, is there much, or was there, in your experience, any education into handling this stuff? Was there any education about PTSD? Was there any education on how to handle traumatic experiences or events, or is that something that wasn't really taught at the
Do you
time?
know what it was? I think when we come back from the first Gulf, and we went over, they brought a thing in called TRIM, and it's called trauma something. I can't remember what it's called, but when you're in a contact situation, when you're having a bit of fisticuffs, as soon as you finish that, you come back into the camp and you talk about it. And the padre will be there, your sergeant major will be there, and it will be all logged and written down in a book that you've been trimmed, you know? Never happens. Never happened. It just, yeah, it was too much arseache for regiments to do it. You know, every time you're in a contact situation to get trimmed and bring lads back, it wasn't feasible to do that. it wasn't feasible to do that. It wasn't the right thing to do because you're just pulling people back all the time, you know. So going back to what you said about reflection, you know, is the best thing you could have done, or the army could have done, is reflect. But do you know what? I didn't know what PTSD was. Not at all. Not at all. Through training, I knew people had PTSD from childhood trauma, and I had heard of PTSD, but I never knew the army could get it. I never knew you could get it because it never got mentioned. It never got spoke. It was like a taboo thing to do, you know, until suicide went up, especially in camp. You know, lads not going home, spending a lot of time in their block and end up topping themselves because of the trauma.
Yeah, I mean that trim process, one, is sounds very inefficient. Two, it sounds like a little bit of a tick box exercise, right? So they say, look, we've got this thing in place, so if something happens, you know, we had a process in place for this, right? But it doesn't seem, you know, like it was made with an eye towards efficiency. Do you know if that approach to PTSD and everything in basic training, has that developed and changed much from, you know,
Do you know
your
what? I
time to
don't
the guys
know.
now?
I really don't know. I spoke to a friend of mine who's just recently been discharged with PTSD, and he left as a sergeant major, and he said it hasn't fucking changed. Hasn't changed one bit. It's all about bums on seats, you know. So if you're broken, they will fuck you off and bring somebody in that's working, and your job's done. My thing is that every veteran person leaving the armed forces should get monitored for 2 years. And this is what I reckon, should get monitored for 2 years prior to leaving the armed services. And that will stop homelessness, that will stop addiction, that will stop suicide. Probably not stop it, but it will dip because, you know, you're getting monitored and you're getting the help you need. But no, they haven't learned. They haven't learned at all, and I think it's a big thing that needs to be addressed. You know, it needs to be, yeah, like a tick in a box sort of exercise where once, like an MOT really for a car
Yeah.
or insuring it, you need to once a month or once every couple of months talk to people about PTSD and about the importance and about the signs. So that bloke next to you can go, fucking hell, yeah, Bob next door to me, he's a bit quiet lately, you know, and yeah, and that's what it's all about, recognizing and helping others as well.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like a big thing to you know, a hard thing to put in place for, you know, these guys who have you know, given everything for their country, to just put something in place like you said, every 3 months, just make sure that they've checked in with a psychologist or a psychiatrist or something, right? Just okay, he came in, he signed the form, he said he had a chat. If there's anything of concern, that could be logged down. That doesn't seem like a very difficult thing to put
But
in place.
what they're worried about doing is losing their job. So as soon as you go and see a psychiatrist or a therapist, you're earmarked then, you
Mm,
know, as an issue.
yeah.
And you keep going and keep going, they will eventually discharge you with mental health issues, and or they'll keep you in camp. You won't go and exercise, and you can't handle the gun because they're worried that you might fucking go nuts with it.
Mm.
You know, even if you go and see them just for a little chat because you feel a bit down, you know. And I've learned from my experience with mental health, it's all right to be fucking down, you know. It's all right to talk, but it's like I speak to a lot of police officers and they suffer with PTSD, but they keep it to themselves because if they seem deemed to go and see somebody, they will get kicked out of the police force straight away. And it's the same with the armed forces. It's terrible. You look after their own, you know, but like I said, it's bums on seats. If you're broken, they'll fuck you off to fit you with a new person.
And was there, in your experience or friends or colleagues, was there any aftercare at all? You know,
No,
obviously not something like we mentioned there, but is there anything?
not at all.
Hmm.
Not at all. No. My friend has just passed away from brain cancer, and a really good friend of mine, and it was all done through social media. You know, his funeral and everything, and everyone went down to go and see him. But yeah, the regiment, no, they don't give a fuck. You know, especially my regiment, it's so archaic, and it's too scared to move on with the times. You know, and they'd rather just stick to where it was. You know, back in the fucking Waterloo times, and their aftercare, it's absolutely appalling. Absolutely appalling. Now, every regiment has got an ethos, you know, a family ethos. And I think the Powers and the Royal Marines are the best at that. Probably the Rifles as well. They're pretty good, you know, but some regiments are absolutely fucking appalling. When I got discharged out the army, they put you on garden leave. And what that is, you just stay at home, really, and wait to get kicked out of the army. So you just stay at home, but you're getting paid still, but you're not allowed back into camp at all. And you're just waiting. No one rang me from my regiment to make sure I was all right. Within 6 months of me waiting to get discharged, no one spoke to me. I could be fucking dead, all they fucking know. And all they would do is probably send a bunch of flowers to my wife. And that's it. Absolutely fucking appalling. And this is what needs to get, you know, change in the armed forces. And the government need to say, yeah, this needs to get changed. But they pump all this fucking money in and nothing gets done. Like these charities, they pump all this money into these charities and nothing gets fucking done because they worked it out. Every pound to get donated to a charity, 1p will go to where it's meant to be going. The rest will get sucked up in administration fees.
Yeah.
I've looked into it and it's fucking appalling. These big fucking huge charities, but the government will give money to these charities, and that's the government done because they've done their bit. They give them money to the charity, and they expect the charity then to do their work, but they're shit, absolutely fucking shit. I pay for my own therapy out of my own pocket because whatever therapy you get, they only give you 6 sessions. And do you know what? They end up clock watching all the time and they only give you an hour. So if you go over that hour, they interrupt you. And when you get the trust of that doctor and you're in mid flow about to fucking say something that you've never spoke to about, yeah, your hour's up, mate. Come back next week. You're like, what? You know, oh, take these fucking drugs. They'll make you numb. You know, ruin your sex life, ruin your friendship, ruin everything. But at least you like that. You know?
Yeah, it's tick box. It's tick box, and
massively.
And it must be just so emotionally damaged as well, because obviously you're dealing with this stuff, right? You're dealing with the PTSD, but then you're also dealing with the emotion of, okay, I gave my everything to this country, and this is how they treat me now. Like that, you know, that's how you get people who feel like pawns in a game. They feel like toy soldiers, right? So that must be quite emotional to deal with as well. It's like, I gave all this and this is really what they think of me. That must be, you know, an extra layer on top of the suffering that you're already dealing with.
Well, yeah, I was due for promotion, but I left as a sergeant, and I didn't get a dine out in the mess. Usually when you get discharged, you have a dinner and you go in sergeant's mess, you have a big dine out. I got nothing. No one said goodbye to me. And you get sent to a wounded soldier sort of unit outside the regiment. And it was based on an older shot, and my regiment was in Windsor at the time. And you don't see anyone from the regiment. You hand your kit in, it's the only time you're allowed back in camp. And people don't talk to you. You feel like a fucking leper, you know, because one, you mentally feel you've let everyone down because you've got this problem. You haven't lost a leg. You haven't lost an arm. You've got fucking mental scars inside, but you feel you've let everyone down. And lads are just getting on with the next tour. Lads are just getting on with the next exercise. And that's how it happens. And you're just driftwood, you know?
Yeah. And I can only imagine it being so beneficial for these lads today who are going through training, right? Just if they could just maybe bring in someone like yourself, just to do a blanket overview talk to everyone, right? Someone, not a doctor, not, you know, someone who understands the terminology, but someone who's been through it, and they say, right, lads, I was exactly where you are now. You know, let me tell you about my experience. Here are the warning signs. Here's the things to look out for. That would have been, I imagine, for you at the time when you were going through your training, invaluable to hear from.
Oh, massively, massively. Like, I'm not here to sharpen an axe. And that's what I would say to him. I'm not here to sharpen an axe. I'm not here to dilute your impression of the army. The army's fucking brilliant. Absolutely fucking brilliant. Loved every fucking minute of it, even the bullshit, because there's they always say the famous saying that you miss the clowns, not the circus, because the lads are fucking top and they bring you through the shit. And I would say in front of them, I would say my experience of PTSD, the signs of PTSD, but I wouldn't slag the army off at all. No. It's the people in charge of it. They're the fucking issue. They're the problem, and I've always said it, mate, no one will understand PTSD or mental health unless you've gone through it yourself. Yeah. You cannot learn it from a fucking book. The book doesn't work. Somebody else has experienced that and stand there and talk to you face to face. That's the best way of doing it.
What do you wish? I think everyone knows the term PTSD, and they might have seen scenes in movies where a soldier may be suffering from PTSD, but what do you wish more people understood about it?
The signs. The signs of PTSD. Because people do put a mask on. I put a fucking mask on all the time. Oh, there's Craig, happy-go-lucky, but inside I'm fucking broken. I sit in my car and have a cry, take my mask off. I feel sorry for my wife, Tanya. 22 years we've been together, and if I'm having a shit time, she wears it, not physically or anything like that, but she wears my depression as in I'm fucking miserable. I just want to be on my own. I don't want to be around her and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just fucking, yeah. I forgot what the question was. I just led on then.
No, I said we're talking about, what you wish more people understood about PTSD.
Oh, yeah,
as you said, the signs,
the
right?
signs. Yeah, I think understanding the signs and seeing somebody like your next door neighbour could be living on their own and, you haven't seen them for about a week or so. The mail's building up. Do something about it. Don't leave it until the police kick in his door and he's committed suicide. You could have prevented that. Same with the army. You live in single man accommodation. Always make sure your mucker's all right. Even if he's got tough times with his parents or something like that, it doesn't have to be a conflict situation. It could be anything. Your missus has finished with you. Your missus been banging your best mate and you're down and stuff like that. There's loads of scenarios, but you need to notice them signs.
I've heard this term chronic PTSD. What is that?
That's what I've got. I've got chronic PTSD. Oh, no, sorry, complex. It's chronic, complex, or combat. That's, and basically that's many. So say, for instance, you got knocked over by a car. All right. God help it never happens, mate. If you watch, I've jinxed you now. So you think you get knocked over by a car, right? You have flashbacks of that car incident. You've got PTSD, right? If you got knocked over by a car, and then the following week you got knocked over by a lorry, and then the following week you got knocked off your bike, and then the following week you got knocked off and you got hit by a golf ball in the golfing range, right? That's complex PTSD. That is severe PTSD. It's multiple incidents in your life. So me, for instance, I've done many tours, and I've bottled everything up. But when I got blown up in Afghan, that shattered me, absolutely shattered me. And it made me feel non-human, how vulnerable I was as a human being. This explosion rocked me, and I used to walk around like 10 men, like I'm indestructible. I used to run through firefights, get into a firefight and everything. But as soon as I got blown up, I realized that, that really shook me. And to hold back them, I had images of Bosnia, I had images of Kosovo. Yeah, I was in Afghan. It just shock you. And that's what complex or severe PTSD is.
And You sort of alluded to this a couple of times, this explosion. What's the context around this explosion? What exactly happened there?
So I was on a mission, sniper mission, and I drove over an IED. It was at 14th of December, 4:30 in the evening. Remember it? Remember looking at my watch. I remember kneeling down, and I hit a 30-kilo anti-tank mine in my vehicle, and I got a brain injury. I broke both my arms. I had with my hand, I had finally got my finger amputated after a while, and my palm of my hand operated on. I was really fucked up, and my driver was more fucked up than I was. He nearly lost both his legs, but they managed to put him back together, but he lost so much fucking blood. And we got back to Bastion, and then we flew to Kandahar, and then we flew back to Birmingham Sally Oak Hospital. They put me in casts, and then they took the casts off in 6 weeks' time, made me do 10 press-ups and sent me back out. Straight snipering again. And that's when I didn't feel right in myself. I was popping painkillers, and in a way I should have spoke up more, but I felt it was a duty to go back and be with my men. And that's how I felt. And I sort of sucked it up a little bit in myself. But do I regret that? Yeah, I probably do. It probably didn't do my PTSD a world of good.
Yeah. I mean, with an event like that, that's, so traumatic, so vivid, something that myself and the audience, we wouldn't be able to imagine what that is like. And we can appreciate how that may affect you in a similar setting, right? When you're on a tour or something. But does that explosion, that trauma affect you in your day-to-day civilian life, and how does that show up?
Oh, massively. Bangs, people dropping stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know what? 3 days before that, I got shot on my helmet. And I had an old style helmet on, a Mark 6 Alpha helmet, and they're quite low on the ear. And when that tour, we got issued the new 7 Alpha helmets, which were higher, and they're an inch higher off the ear. So my head was so big, they didn't have my size in the store. So they said, you're going to have to go on tour with your old helmet. I said, yeah, no worries. If I'd had the new helmet on, I wouldn't be talking to you now, because he shot me straight in the head. Because I had the old style on, it hit on my right side. And yeah, and do you know what? I think of that more than me getting blown up. How lucky I was. It knocked me out for about 20 seconds. There's 3 flights to a bullet. There's supersonic, there's subsonic, there's transonic. All right. So when it comes out the rifle, it's going supersonic, and then it will go transonic when it starts wobbling around, and then it will go subsonic. At certain distances, this will change. This bullet hit me going supersonic because the Taliban was so close to me. It just knocked me. I got hit in the chest. I had a strap with my ammo on it. Hit the strap, hit the ammo box, which my GPMG machine gun was on. So that snapped, and then it hit me in the temple, in the head, and with my helmet, and it came right round the helmet and came out the top. And it just knocked me clean out for about 20 seconds. And do you know what? To this day now, I haven't got a fucking clue what I done. Haven't got a clue. It's only my driver's recollection of what I'd done that then he told me. Apparently, I got accommodation for it, for bravery and gallantry. I stayed on top of the hill, and I fought the Taliban. And my gun was out of order, so I was using my SE-80, ran out of ammo, so I started using my sidearm. I didn't run out of ammo, I just felt really concussed and out of sorts, and I couldn't reload my SE-80, so I got my sidearm out, and I was firing my sidearm. I extracted 4 vehicles off the hill, 14 guys altogether, and I stayed on the hill and started fighting. My driver apparently was in the footwell of the vehicle, and I was shouting at him, telling him to reverse because of what we had done. yeah, it was just fucking chaos. But I can't fucking remember that.
Wow. And I suppose that's probably really difficult emotionally to live with when you think of the what ifs, right? You think, what if they had a helmet that fit, that day? Like, you coming that close to these life and death margins, just reflecting back on the what ifs, or, the butterfly effect of what could have been, right? That must be really difficult to live with as well.
Oh yeah, of course. The army lives off the what if factor. So you go in to do a mission and you give a mission statement, and then you go, yeah, but what if? Okay, yeah, yeah, that's good, but what if? So you have a plan A, B, C, D, E, F. You know what I mean? You have different backups. But I always reflect back on my bullet to the helmet. Always, 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 and how lucky I was, and the what if factor. And the fact is that I never told Tanya. I never told her. She found out through the wives and gossip in England that I had got shot in the helmet, and then she wasn't very happy with me because I just didn't want her to worry. You know, it was nonsense to worry about that sort of thing. You know, until I finally came home and hit the IED, so it sort of beat me up a bit.
It's clear, because you've referenced your wife a couple of times. It's so clear the impact that your wife has had on you, and how special she is to you. And I've heard you say that you've credited both your wife and your dog for saving your life, right? How have they both impacted you, and why are they so special to you?
My wife's Tanya, she's a lot of marriages don't work when people leave the armed forces. A lot of them don't work. Probably nearly 90% don't work, and you have to find that right person to make that work. And I met her, and it was always the army first, her second. And the army teaches you that. It's army, 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 and when I left the army, I always put her first. And she has saved my life. She's a very wise woman, and stuff that she comes out with, and I think, okay, majority of the time I don't fucking listen to her, not even now. And then when it goes horribly wrong, she goes, "Told you," and maybe I'll listen to her more. But my dog Betsy, I tried to commit suicide a couple of years ago, and she saved my life, as in the way she looked at me, and the way she just looked at me made me realize that I can't do this, and obviously Betsy, who passed away 3 years ago now, and she was 17, and she was my absolute all. And I've got another dog now called Steve, and he's Bombers. And but yeah, I think they give me purpose. I'm a very bland kind of guy, and I don't need materialistic things around me. But my wife and my dog, they keep me on this planet big time, because I suffer from suicidal ideation. I think about it all the fucking time. It doesn't mean I'm going to carry it out. Not at all. The medication really helps me, and to get the right medication helps you as well. But to have a solid relationship, it fucking massively helps. Massively helps.
There was a clip I was watching of you a couple of days ago where you were describing this really life or death situation you found yourself in, and the one thing that you wanted to do in that moment is just to call your wife to hear her voice. What was that environment you were in during that time?
So we was in a building called the PJOC, which is in Basra in Iraq, and basically it's only got about 18 people in there, and it's next to a prison. So every night from probably 5 o'clock in the evening till 11 o'clock in the evening till 5 in the morning, it's full on fighting on the rooftops, and they're fighting at you, we're fighting at them. And I mean, it's fucking full on. They do not give you a break. And in the day, dead quiet. so you can get your head down and recuperate. But as soon as 11 o'clock hits, it's always roughly about 10 minutes past or 10 to 11, fucking full on. And then 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, the market would open. And it's weird. They would step over the bodies and they'd just open their, it's just a bizarre situation. But one situation that we nearly got overrun, because they were limited. And Basra Palace was just down the road. And it takes about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to walk it, but it takes 2 hours in a vehicle. All right, because you get fucking smashed. They throw everything at you. And it was this point where it was full on fighting at the time. And where me and my number two were was, do you ever remember the Muppets? Do you remember the old two grumpy guys in the balcony?
Yeah, sat on the
That's what
wall.
my sniper hide looked like. That's how fucking obvious it was. You know, we didn't build it. Somebody else did. And we thought, we're just sitting targets here. They're just taking pot shots at us. And so we climbed down this metal stairs to get onto the rooftop. And it was fucking loud. And I felt the urge because they were coming in from everywhere. And we had a red phone at the bottom, the sniper hide, and it was the Paradigm phone that people phoned home. And I phoned Tanya up, and I just wanted to hear her voice. That was all, to give me that extra bit of strength, that extra bit of courage, you know. And people slate me for it, saying, fucking hell, you're in a firefight and you're ringing home. But they weren't there. They weren't in that fucking situation where shit was hitting the fan. And I bet any fucking money before they fucking either something happened to them, the last voice they wanted to hear would have been a loved one, without a fucking doubt. And that's what I done, you know. And luckily, we won the fight.
And that must have, you know, not only is that, you know, there's something you just want to hear their voice, but that must have sort of helped you, like propelled you, given you a little bit more strength in that moment, right?
Massively. She didn't know what was going on. She goes, what's that noise? I said, that's all right. I just want to tell you that I love you, you know. And she goes, you sure you're okay? And I said, yeah, I'm absolutely fine. Just want to say I love you. And I promise you, I'll ring you in the morning, you know. And I couldn't keep that promise, but you know, because I didn't know what was going to happen.
No.
You know, war's unpredictable. You can't stop a flight of a bullet, where it's going. So yeah, I phoned her in the morning, and I didn't explain to her, but we just spoke about random stuff. You know, how the washing machine's broke and the lawn needs mowing. We haven't got a lawn mower and shit like that.
So do you think you'll ever get to a place in which you are able to really, you know, let go of some of this weight that sort of consumes you, or is it not about letting it go and rather something you learn to live alongside?
Yeah, it's something you live with. You know, my wife always says to me, it'll never leave you. It'll always be with you, you know, and it's fucking hard. It is fucking hard. And yeah, it'll always be with me. And I can't stop or help when things remind me of certain things. You know, I think, fuck me, and you get a flashback. You know, that's PTSD. That's PTSD for you. You'll get a flashback. You know, and that's anxiety when you don't want to go out in crowded places and stuff like that. You know, you like being on your own. And it's took me a long time. And I've said to you before, you know, it's all right to have a shit day. It's perfectly fucking normal, you know, but if it carries on more than a week or so, then you need to sort help, you know. And I think medication helps as well. Helps me massively, helps me.
So when you look back on everything, you look back on your time, your military career, what did you gain from your time in the military, and what did you lose from your time in the military?
I gained confidence, made me a man, as in, I joined when I was 16 and I left after 23 years. You know, it made me such a better person, and it made me very switched on to civilian street, as in civilian jobs are easier because you've been in the army, and you could work problems out much easier than a civilian would, because you've got that calm sort of like attitude. What have I lost? I wouldn't say lost my confidence, because I do talks about mental health and I stand up, and talk in front of hundreds of people. Um, I gained PTSD.
Mm.
That's what I've gained as well. I gained mental health, and I lost my mental health, I lost that happy-go-lucky person. That's what I lost, and that's what I miss, The medication I'm on numbs everything, but I'd rather be straight, long line than dipping down thinking of suicide, I'd rather be on that line, and medication helps. And I recommend medication. It's not the answer. It hasn't got the fucking cure, but if it saves your life, recommend it.
Losing that side of you, something that is a big, was a big part of your personality and who you are, losing that side of you. And as you said, it has that sort of numbing effect now on that side of you. But is that something you've come to terms with and found peace with?
Yeah, you just got to get on with it.
Hmm.
You just got to get on with it. I still wear a mask, and don't get me wrong, I have my down days, and it's good. My loved ones around me know how to treat me when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling shitty. I like being on my own. I like taking Steve out and just going for a 2-hour walk and just disappear and recharge and stuff like that, and that's what I want to do. Yeah, you learn to not live with it, but adapt.
Yeah.
Adapt with it, and it'll never leave you. They took the defections from World War II to Normandy, the old guys, and they broke down. They broke down and started crying. And some of them haven't cried since they left the army when they were fucking teenagers. And as soon as they hit Normandy, all came flooding back. So it'll never leave you. It'll always be with you, but you just learn to cope with it more.
If we could sort of take a time machine here and go back and speak to a very young, fresh-faced Craig Harrison who, had an eye on, beginning training, beginning his military career, what would you want to tell that version of yourself? What would you want to warn him? What advice would you give him? What would you like him to know?
Buckle down, get a trade. If I advise anyone, especially myself, I would, if I had somebody like myself speaking to a younger version and I said to him, just get a trade. Before you get in the army, join the REME, join the regimental police, the RMPs, get a trade. Something to benefit you when you leave the army. Engineers, get all your licenses, get all your trades. You can do so many things in the army, but as long as you get your trades done, the floodgates are open. So the army's not forever. It's just for 22 years,
Mm.
And that's if you want to do that long. And when you're out, you're out. The army don't give a fuck, but you've got trades, something to fall back on. Carpenter, bricklayer, engineer, surveyor, anything, all your licenses, you can drive any vehicle. And that's what I would tell myself, get a fucking trade. But I didn't have that. I was focused in one thing of just joining the army to get away from home life and stuff like that. So,
Well, on that then, on the sort of tail end of what you just said, what was the motivation? Why the army? What when you said there, get away from home life? What were you looking for in the army?
I rode horses when I was little. Since I was really small, I've always rode horses, and I wanted to be a farrier. That's what I wanted to be, like a blacksmith farrier. And I knew the household cavalry had blacksmiths and farriers in there, so I wanted to get a trade. So my granddad always said, become a farrier. And where I lived in Cheltenham, there was no farriers taking on apprenticeships. It was quite hard back then. So, and I was dyslexic as well because I just fucked around at school. I didn't really concentrate and do much. So I joined the regiment to become a farrier, but my dyslexia took over and it didn't work out for me. So I went to my regiment split into two. So you got the ceremonial and you got the armoured side, and I just went to the armoured side and never looked back.
And when you said there about, it's 22 years of your life, right? But for those 22 years, like you said, when you were talking about your wife earlier, the army comes first, right? That is really the main part of Craig Harrison's story for those 22 years. You are the military guy. So when you leave the military and you're coming back into civilian life, did you struggle with a sense of identity crisis of who am I without the military? What
Yeah.
now? Who am I now?
Oh, massively. You struggle with purpose. You join when you were 16, you leave when you're 40, and you're totally institutionalized. And that's where people struggle. You get people leave at sergeant majors and officers, have gone through all the ranks, and they leave the army and they go, what do I do? And they end up being a milkman or a post officeman. And it's not like the army. It's not the fast pace. It's not the responsibility. But some people like it. Some people adapt really well because they're fed up of having that responsibility and they want somebody else to have it. So they're willing to take a back seat, but some people can't get away from that and they miss that. And that's why suicide comes into it, because they can't fit into civilian life, and they think they're different because they've been institutionalized by the military.
So where did you find your purpose after the military?
I still haven't found my purpose, to be honest
Wow.
with you. I have opened a Maverick survival school up, and I teach people bushcraft, and not just veterans, but first-line responders. And I realise that it's not just the services or first-line responders suffering from mental health. It's civilians as well, from childhood trauma, stuff like that. So I've opened up to everybody, and they come down to my wood every couple of weekends, and we just do bushcraft and just talk about random conspiracy theories and stuff like that. And it's a really good weekend, and it's open to everybody. So, and I suppose in a way that's my bit of purpose, because I love teaching, and I've just opened a sniper school up. And I want to start teaching camouflage and concealment, stalking, and stuff like that. Things that I'm fucking good at, and pass my knowledge on to others.
Amazing. I'm, I think a lot of purpose can be found, and you should take a lot of pride as well in what you do in talking about this subject of mental health, right? Because I'm someone, I'm never gonna, understand these things properly, but I've read, and I know many of our audience, we've read all the military books that are out there, right? We've interviewed, probably 10 plus British SAS guys, American military generals. But I think in a conversation like this today, I've probably learned more in this conversation than I have in any other, because I've never really understood the reality and the importance of, what you guys are left with, what really the challenges you face when you come out of there. So, man, you're doing so much for the educational side and really bringing this message to the mainstream, because I don't think the government do a very good job of it. I don't think it's highlighted very well in the media. So I think for people like yourself to come out, in a day and age where men are, afraid to be open and honest, right? But for you to do what you're doing, the messages you're putting out, this is why we wanted you on the show. And sitting here listening to you today, I've learned so much, and I think you should take a lot of pride in that, man.
No, I appreciate that. And it really means a lot, because some people that talk, you have military people on, they don't like to seem to put the military down, and because they've had a good service, or, they got friends that are still serving and stuff like that. But, if you don't have that one person that speak up, you're never going to know.
No, someone's got to, man. And appreciate you so much. Appreciate you doing this today.
No, thank you.
The last question we ask everyone that comes on this show, whether you're ex-military or an actor, a musician, scientist, we ask everyone the same question. And that is, right now, for Craig Harrison, what makes life worth living?
My wife and my dog.
Hmm.
Flat bust. You know, yeah, they give me that. I suppose sort of contradict myself really, because I said my school gives me a bit of purpose, but I suppose my wife and my dog Steve gives me purpose to move forward, and keep striving forward and keep speaking up about, something that's close to my heart.
I love it. Well, for everyone who's still with us listening, watching today, where's the best place we can send everyone now? If they've enjoyed this conversation, they want to hear more from yourself, maybe they want to check out Maverick, they want to find you, connect with you, social media, books, etc. Where's the best place we can send everyone right now?
So there's COH Craig Harrison. That's my Instagram. I'm always posting on there. Sometimes I leave it a bit too long, but I always give updates on what's going on, my mental health state, and where people can get help and stuff like that. Or if they're interested in the weekend, if they go onto on Google, just put the Maverick Survival School in there, and the Maverick Survival School to come up there. And if they email me, and I answer everybody. And even if you don't want to book on the school, you just want to talk about mental health, I'm more than willing to talk to you, if you're really struggling. And now I've got this sniper school up and running. There's no website at the moment, but if people are interested on there, it's called the Maverick 41 Sniper Training at gmail.com. If you just email me on that, you can get booked on and meet me, get trained by me, and have a good time.
Amazing. Exciting stuff, man. And I'll make sure everything you've mentioned there is linked in the description below. So for everyone listening, watching, just click the description below on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. All the links will be there to connect with Craig. Craig, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for talking about what you talk about. Like I mentioned, is so important. And it does go a long, long way. So I know you are affecting so many people's lives in a positive way. Appreciate you and appreciate speaking with you today. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege.
No, I appreciate that, mate. Thank you for having me.